Okay, Happy New Year, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask us to everybody rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So in case you haven't noticed, Elaine Bookart is behind the camera there. I'd like to welcome Elaine on behalf of CBC.
Yeah.
She'll be recording this evening's meeting and probably future meetings, if we can do that. And so thank you very much for being here and recording.
You're welcome.
It will appear on your CBC channel, on your television for public access. I've watched RAM meetings on that, and so that's where it can be found. I don't know what the schedule will be, and maybe Elaine will inform us of that when she figures it out. Okay. Second agenda item is comments from the public. Yes, Mr. Mandeville, and if you could please, as always, state your name. And as I did last time, I'm going to limit remarks to 3 minutes per person, please.
Major Mandeville.
I got it.
I just want to ask this board to really consider, I know you guys are looking at adding a budget workshop. I'm going to tell you that I've looked at other towns, and for instance, Hebron added 6 budget workshops to their schedule. They are having literally a meeting every single week this month, plus the first week of February, just for budget. And I think maybe that's what's been missing in the past, is that you guys haven't had time as a board to go through the budget and really kind of parse it to figure out where the where the problems are, or where the issues are, so that you can make some more substantial cuts. Because that really is going to be something you guys need to look at. Coventry does it, Bolton does it, all the surrounding towns do it. I would encourage you guys to do the same, so that you can actually take the time to go through this budget and figure out where the numbers are, because that's probably something that really needs to be, is part of the process, right? So just from my own take on it, the town side of the budget is give or take, we're give or take 23% of the town budget, right? You guys are 77%. So given the fact that the town added 8 meetings last year to go through our 23%, we would encourage you guys to kind of, pony up and do the same. I know it's a lot to ask of you, and I can assure you that all the other boards, are doing it too. So I ask you to take that responsibility seriously. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Do we have any communications, Sally?
I do not.
John?
Not in the communications area.
Okay. Move on to agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our December 11th meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from Wednesday, December 11th, 2019.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Cindy. I note that we have a couple changes that are needed. On page 4, do you have the minutes from our last meeting? So in the first amendment, it should have reflected a 150 vote. The amendment was defeated, but on that vote, Dan Foran was the only person who voted in favor of the amendment. The other 5 voted against. So Jerry then would join the 5 that voted against, and the number would be 5. In the second amendment, further down the page, the vote was 2-4-0. And on that amendment, B. Lorenz and D. Foran voted in favor of the amendment, and the other 4 voted against it. So it properly reflected defeated, but it just had the incorrect tally.
Lorenz and who? Foran?
Yes, it says already B. Lorenz, and if you just add and D. Foran.
Yep.
And then remove D. Foran from the voting in favor. Or excuse me, voting against, I
Right.
apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, and change the number to 4, voting against the second amendment. And on the next page, the only thing that I would do is take out third amendment, because it wasn't really an amendment. We were then proceeding on accepting policy 6152 as it had been presented. So just delete third amendment. Do you see that on the top of the next page?
I'm trying to read through her minutes. Yes, so just delete the third amendment?
Yes, just
completely?
delete third amendment, because it wasn't really an amendment.
Okay, yeah.
We were accepting the policy as it had been presented, with the two other amendments having been defeated.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any other discussion or amendments about the minutes from our December meeting? Okay, all those, yes,
I was just trying to keep up.
I'm sorry.
Right.
You have any questions about what I just said?
2-4.
To properly reflect the minutes, Chrissy?
Okay.
Yeah? Are you all set?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion or amendments? All those in favor of accepting the minutes as amended, signify aye. Steve? Oh, you
I have to
pass it,
abstain,
right?
yes.
So you're gonna abstain, okay, so it's gonna be 5-0-1 with S. Fuss abstaining. Okay, do we need to add or delete any agenda items?
I had a couple EastCon type questions. I guess I could ask when I'm doing the financial report, but I had something else that I wanted to ask the superintendent.
Okay, do you wanna add that, where do you wanna add that to the
Oh, yeah.
agenda?
You want to add it under superintendent's report again? Can I ask it there?
Sure. What should we add to the agenda then,
Just
Dan?
put EastCon class study, please.
So why don't we add, items for discussion and actions, why don't we add a C for EastCon study, class study, EastCon class study. So that would be C2C. Anything else? Okay. So as far as celebrations, I would just like to congratulate Amy Knox and Linda Hadley as becoming our two new paraprofessionals to Andover Elementary School. Welcome to the professional fold and not just substituting Amy and running cool and everything. Congratulations. So far, so good?
So far, so good.
For what, 5 days under your belt?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's counting?
I just did it in my head, so that's okay. Okay. Terrific.
Yes.
Great. Any other celebrations? Okay. So as far as the chairperson's oral report, I'll just report that I've heard back from almost everyone on the shared space committee, and I will be scheduling a committee meeting to occur before the end of this month. Just haven't heard back from one member, and I need to reach out to him directly, but we'll be scheduling that and hopefully able to know everybody's schedule. We all have very busy schedules, so we'll schedule that, and then I'll be able to better report back on our initial meeting at our February Board of Ed meeting. John?
Thank you very much. You stole my thunder, so I'll have to come up with some other. No.
I was alerted to your thunder by your
Yes,
report, so
thank
that's good. Thank you for alerting me.
In the report, in my report, I did refer to the two new paraprofessionals that were hired. So as a result of that, we have a full-time paraprofessional in our second grade classroom and in our fifth grade classroom. And both classroom teachers, our second grade teacher is actually out right now, but the teachers who are working in those classrooms, Lisa in fifth grade and our sub in second grade, report that it's been a tremendous help. So we appreciate the support. We started our mid-year assessments today. Those are our STAR reading and math assessments for grades K through 6. We use this information to help us drive instruction and planning for the rest of the year. It allows us to measure student growth. It allows us to work on grouping of students and allows us again to differentiate and meet their needs as we go into the second half of the school year. Kindergarten registration you'll see an ad appear in this week's River East, followed by an ad either next week or the following week for preschool. So we're already starting up our registration. We're reaching out to the families of the 4-year-old students and confirming that they're going to be coming up into kindergarten. And then we'll reach out to the 3-year-olds and confirm that they're interested in coming back next year. So it's helping us to solidify our numbers moving forward. While we're talking about numbers, at the beginning of the year, we lost a third and a fifth. At the beginning of the January 2020, we lost a third and fifth grade student, and surprisingly, we got a phone call on Monday saying that there's a third and a fifth grade student that are moving to town around the middle of the month. So we'll kind of fill that void. They haven't registered yet, so it's not, but they're planning on moving to Andover, and they happen to be in third and fifth grade. And then today, there's a family that lives out in Massachusetts, out in the Webster, Mass area, who came down, and they basically said to me, "We're buying a house in Andover," and they have 2 kids. They have a student now in pre-K and one in kindergarten, so they'd be in K and 1 next year. And they said, "We are buying a house in Andover. We want to fill out the paperwork. We want to get the ball rolling," like that. So, and I took them on a tour of the building today. They were very excited.
Great.
Lastly, on my report, you'll see that during the months of January, February, and March, we have several very fun and becoming more, traditional activities at school. The Geography Bee, the Spelling Bee, and Read Across America has always been a staple here. So these are things that we do as a whole school, and get students involved, and it sort of showcases our students and their abilities. Winter concert at the end of the month, January 29th, everyone's invited. And that's about it. Any questions for me?
Any questions of John? Sally?
Just one quick update. After the last meeting, we discussed, if you recall then, teachers in the building and being able to stay. And so I did send out a memo the next day that teachers can stay in the building until 9:30 when the custodian. So. That's it.
That's all you want to say?
That's it.
Well, she's got a lot more to say about it.
I was going to say, let's go ahead.
Okay, move on?
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. So this evening, we're going to present to you the budget, proposed budget for next year, the 2020 to 21 school year. And I'm going to stand there.
Do you want one row of lights off, or do you want to leave them on?
Why don't we leave one and just see?
See how it is.
Yeah, we'll see how it is. So you should all have a budget book in front of you that we just finished this week, getting all of the details put in. So
It's coming up.
it's coming
That's
up.
good.
Okay, it's coming up. So what I want to do this evening is walk you through in pretty good detail the major areas of the budget, the different components that we divide into objects and functions and all of that, and explain all of that as best I can for you this evening, and give you the big picture of things. So before we get actually started, I do want to thank several people who were key in all of this. Laura Edwards, our business manager, who put together all of the charts and the data that you're going to be looking at. It's in your packet, and we're going to be looking at this evening. John and Holly, who contributed in terms of all the programming that they work on, and certainly Rosemary Crandall and Diane Kane, who put all these pieces together into your wonderful budget booklet that you have this evening. So I'm going to review for you the major budget categories. These are set up for us by the state of Connecticut. It's the formal required education chart of accounts that we have to follow by object and by function. So the budget has two main goals. Obviously, we want to meet the needs of students, that's our primary goal. But we also have to remain aware, obviously, of fiscal realities in the community. So you'll see both of those components as we work through the budget. We will, this is obviously the first look at the budget. We will have it on the agenda again in February, and then of course the board can talk about scheduling budget workshops as you choose to do that between now and then. Okay, so if you can just turn to the first page, walk you through some of that. The table of contents page, I think you have in front of you. And again, these are just, again, the major levels and objects and functions and so on that we're going to be going through. One new thing this year that we added in the appendices is the grants page, and that's page 25. We will get to that, but that has never been included in past budgets as just as a separate category. So you'll be able to see all of the different grants that we apply for and receive. So the transmittal letter, which is next, which is addressed to the chair of the Board of Education, this obviously to Shannon, gives kind of an overview of the philosophy of the budget. Obviously, we are a people-focused budget. 75% of our money is spent on people, on staff, all of our certified and non-certified staff. We have exceptional facilities also here at Andover Elementary School that sometimes I think people take for granted or forget about. We are in this wonderful media center. We also have an art room, a stage, maker space, and expansive playgrounds, which many schools do not have. Students can participate in many, many clubs and activities after school: archery, Lego, technology, homework, the art show, science fair, and a lot of other things that are available to them. We also provide support services, which includes a social worker, a psychologist, occupational therapist, and a school nurse. And we're thankful to have an active parent-teacher association that provides tremendous support for the school. So, in looking at the timeline, this is what we know and estimates on other things. Obviously, we're just going through this for the first time tonight. Public workshops on the Board of Education budget. We don't have those dates that can be set. We have a follow-up discussion that will be on the February 12th agenda. And then February 26th, the budget is submitted to the Board of Finance, and it goes through the various stages then at the town level. So, the next page, we're looking at student enrollments. And this is obviously one of the main drivers of the whole budget, because our budget, our numbers, our classrooms are built around students, obviously. So we anticipate this year, if we just look across under pre-K, we've had 45 students in preschool this year. 21 of those are currently 4 years old, the others are currently 3-year-olds.
Well, there's actually technically 27 are 4-year-olds, but 6 are from out of town.
Okay, 6 are from out of town, and they will not be coming in next year, as far as we know. So the 21 4-year-olds that are currently enrolled will move on to kindergarten for next year. And then the 3-year-olds will move on to a second year of preschool, obviously, as the 4-year-olds next year. So next year we're anticipating, we're projecting 30 students in preschool, down from 45. And that's really based on, again, the 3-year-olds who we think will stay in preschool, and we're estimating that as 18 students. And then 10 students that were also, who were born in 17, that we're projecting may come. That was half of the births in that particular year in 17. So that makes 30 students for next year. And we're leaving the 3-day classes. There was some discussion at one point about cutting back the preschool to possibly 2, but with the projections of 30, we are leaving the number of classes and teachers at 3 for next year. So again, you can just follow these numbers down. You may remember that this year in 2nd grade and in 5th grade, the board previously decided to add a paraprofessional to those classes for the rest of the year because they were a little bit on the high side, and so we did that. And you can see again the projections then for next year. At a previous meeting, the board approved 16 classes for next year, which you'll see then is our projection, and we're projecting 186 students. So again, these numbers fluctuate a lot. We don't know, as John said, we had some people move out, we're having some other people move in, and so it's a constant flux of these numbers. So we estimate the best we can, obviously, and then we have to make adjustments along the way if necessary. But right now, again, we are budgeting in this budget for 16 classes for next year. The board approved those additional classes at a previous meeting. 186. Okay, so the next page is really the big overview of the budget, the proposed budget. These are our major object categories. These are the main ways in which our dollars are divided. Again, these are state required objects and object codes, and the items that could go each one, and each one of those objects or categories, again, is defined by the state. So the 100s are our salaries, and again, the increase, there's an increase of about 7% for next year, and that's mostly based on the 2 additional classrooms that we're putting in the budget, so 2 new teachers with benefits at the below category. So 2 new teachers, as well as negotiated increases in the contracts for the groups that we already have in place. So both of our non-certified, our certified has budgeted increases for next year, and as you recall, we will be negotiating our non-cert contract yet this year. So the second category, benefits. This is where all of our insurances fall. We have been given by our insurance broker a 10% medical insurance increase for next year, health insurance increase. And we also will have our budgeting for more participants. Again, with 2 new employees next year, we have to assume, or at least budget for the fact that those people may be taking our employment package. We belong, Andover belongs to a health insurance consortium. It's a way that we are able to leverage, because we're so small, the numbers with surrounding communities. Right now there are 6 communities that participate in the consortium. I know that we're looking at adding some additional regional communities who have asked to join, because our insurance increase numbers have been very good compared with just being on the open market. So again, that's something that's ongoing. We meet monthly in order to review all of our claims for each participating community and get an idea of where we're headed, so we don't get into trouble in that category, which can easily happen in districts. So again, 75% we've already covered, the salaries and the benefits as the majority of our budget. The 300s, which are contracted services, professional contracted services, and that's down a little bit. But these are particular people who provide specific services for us. And what's included there is our pre-K consultant. We have a person who works with our pre-K classes to make sure that we are following all of the guidelines. Our social worker is in there, occupational therapy, physical therapy, AHM, which is the consortium that we belong to, and legal fees and website support, technology related as well, website support. The 400s, which again is a very inclusive category, property services. This is all of our repairs that we do for the buildings and the grounds. This particular year, we're on the low side, the $161,000. Those of you who were here remember that the year before we completed a lot of facility projects in 18-19. We had some funds, and so we were able to do that in the previous year's budget, which then again brought this down for 19-20. And so again, though, we are looking at an increase in that line of approximately, well, almost 19.5% from where it has been. This also includes all of the building and the grounds work that we do. The 500s is another category that other purchase services, so these are not ones that we covered under property, and several items are included in here that we do have to budget for next year. Student tuition is in this line, and we do have a student who presently is outplaced in another school district, and we're anticipating that that will continue for next year. This is also where our school bus contract falls, and you may recall, those of you who were here, we were out to bid last year. We received 2 bids for our bus contract, and DATCO was the successful candidate for that contract. Also includes just telephone, printing, binding, all the software licensing that we have to do to keep up to date. Supplies is another category that we're seeing quite a bit of increase for next year, 12%. This line includes all the instructional supplies, everything that's used in the classroom, the textbooks, nurses' supplies, technology items, but it also includes heating oil and diesel fuel, and those are up for next year, electricity, and all of our cleaning, facility cleaning and supplies. The 700s, we have nothing in there, so it's actually gone down. And the reason for that is that we have, the prices of technology have come down so much that actually the items that we purchase fall under supplies now, under the 600s. Because we have about a $5,000 break point. And so anything under $5,000 is now categorized in supplies. So we do not have anything in that for next year. The 800 category, which is just called miscellaneous, this is where student field trips occur. So this includes the entrance fees for all of the school field trips in the year. It also pays for the buses for the field trips. It pays for a CABE, which is the Board of Education Association, and it pays for other professional associations that different personnel participate in. Bursa NASA is a superintendent's association regionally, and so on. And so we get to our bottom line, the increase in dollars, $326,000. And that equals just about an 8% increase next year. So, we still have a lot to do. Laura's going to jump in here for a little bit and explain some of the assumptions that we've used to build this budget, some of the processes that we go through as well. and how all this is tied together.
So, what I wanted to take some time to do is explain some of the assumptions that were made in putting these numbers together. There is actually about 270, more than 270 individual lines in this budget that get condensed down into something that is more understandable. And of the 270 lines of detail, probably 25% of them are here, and this makes up 75% of the budget, which is your salaries and your benefits.
We're on page 3.
This is actually page 7.
Oh,
in the
sorry,
book.
we're jumping on it.
Oh,
7, sorry.
it's okay. So I'm gonna kind of walk this through in objects. I also want to start by saying this was put together using a format that we've used in the past. This is what the Board of Ed had, over time has requested. So the schedules in here is based on what has been asked in the past. That doesn't mean it has to stay that way, but this is the starting point that we're going to work off of. And, as the board wants different information, we can try to put that together. So I wanted to start off with the 100 series, which is salaries. And on page 7, you can see all the different kinds of salaries that are in there. The teacher's contract runs through the end of next year, so that's a given. I can, basically look at our staffing and just kind of move that forward with where they fall on the contract. The 2 new positions that were put in from the board's request, we put those in at what's called an MA5. I believe there's 10 steps in the union contract, so it kind of falls in the middle. It's not a brand new person and it's not a senior person, so I slotted those in there at MA5. The non-certs, their contract ends this year. So we don't have concrete numbers for them for next year. So some assumptions were made for that. And that also holds true for these 3 people. And Diane Kane, who doesn't fall under it. So that's a squishy one. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is we had talked about at the last meeting.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what you just?
So you have basically three groups of people. You have the certs, which is your teachers. You have the non-certs, which is a secretary, the nurse, the custodians, the paraprofessional. They're in another union group. So their contract ends this year. For what this budget is, has not their contract. We don't know yet. And then John, Sally, myself, and Diane Kane were not in any union. So ours is always at your discretion what those increases are. So that's an assumption, again, that was used for putting those.
So would you put that, you guys are non-union, those all fall under the administrative? Or is Diane's broken out into support staff and salaries?
Diane's in support.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to mention was, again, I think it was last meeting, we increased the sub rate from $75 to $80. This budget brings it up to $90. There'll be another increase in minimum wage, and the 90 also still has us a little bit below neighboring towns, but brings us closer to that. So those are basically the assumptions made in putting those numbers together. For benefits, we don't really get a good number a percentage of increase until April, May. So they're still watching the claims and seeing where that is. Last meeting they suggested a little over 9% increase. When we were working those numbers, we did a 10% increase. And I'm sorry, but I'm kind of starting from the bottom and working up here. It also includes the additional staff. Staff would be in there. Things like FICA and Medicare, that's pretty much, that's a percentage. So I just, look at how much we're paying people and I take that percentage. Life and disability is holding pretty steady. It does include the 2 new hires in there. The pension line, the only pension that the board pays for is for the non-certs, and our pension is through the MRF, which is run through Connecticut. And they had a substantial increase in their match. And it's going up substantially every year. I think they're underwater and they're trying to catch up. So we got a memo last year saying what the next, I think, 3 to 4 years increase would be. So that one is actually going up from, we had budgeted it for this year at 12%, it's actually 13.7, and in 2021 it's going up to 15.1. So that's a chunk of change. Retirement payout, again, that's a guess. We don't foresee any teachers retiring. And the $2,000 that's in there is for a possibility of a para. We have a couple paras that are eligible to retire. They're not saying they are or they're not, but I want to put some money in there for that. Tuition reimbursement is in the teacher contract, so we do put some placeholder money in there for that. And I think that unemployment. We continually put money in there and we haven't been using it. We've been fortunate in that people that have been let go or not renewed have been able to get another job, so we just haven't had claims. So I lowered that number substantially to what it had been in the past based on experience. So that we have now covered 75% of the budget. And now we're going to spend a lot of time on 25% of the budget just because there's just more detail to it. And we will spend a lot more time in the budget workshop. So I'm kind of doing high level for you. And I'm sure this will generate some questions. So what I do, after I put together the salary and the benefits, I actually then start looking at things based by function. So a function.
Page 10 in your book.
Page 10.
Yep, sorry. I start looking at things on a function. So this here is all your functions. And I look at those and then I start putting them into these object categories. And I'm going to go through each of these objects and just kind of hit some highlights as to what's a little different from it from the last time we did a budget. If I'm in your way, let me just tell me to move. So administrative technology, that's up a little bit from last year. Let me back up on that. What I do when I look at this is I go back 2 years ago and look at what we've been spending in each of these. So I look at 2 years actual history. I look at where we are this year. And then based on conversations that Sally, John, and I, and Holly, we meet at least monthly, where we're talking, where we think we're going. That's how I put those numbers in. Looking at history, where we are, where we think we're going. So administrative technology is up about $3,000 in this category. And we have needed extra support in our student information system. So that's where the additional money is for that. The student information system, I don't work with it every day, so I'm gonna do the best I can. That tracks everything and anything about our students. The parents, the medications they're taking, the absences, the report cards, rolling it over at the end of the year. It's a very complex database system. We don't have a lot of that database knowledge in-house, so we do rely on outside to help us with that. The next one is Fiscal Services. There's an increase there, a net increase of about 35. So some things went up and some things went down. But one of the bigger things that's in there that's new is I put about $7,500 for the Board of Ed's share of a new accounting system. I had mentioned before that our accounting system is going away, and I am working with the town to come up with a system that we both can use, and I anticipate that they're going to ask us to share in that, as they should. Staff training down here is up a little bit. Again, that's kind of more based on history than anything else, but we pay outside people to come in. There's a lot of mandatory training that is required of staff. So that's the cost of that mandatory training. It's also the cost for teachers that they go to those seminars to brush up on their skills. So that's what's in there. Specialists, these are all those consultants. That's the OT, the PT, the behavioralist, the who else am I missing?
Psychologist.
The psychologist, yes. They're all in here. On balance, it really hasn't changed much, but some of the services went up and some of them went down, and that's just totally based on our anticipated needs of students. So there was an increase in the psychologist and the testing. There's also an increase in occupational therapy. And that's, it's driven by students' IEPs. We also decreased physical therapy, and we decreased some of the other behavior services. Again, history and looking at the student population going out, it's a guess.
An educated guess.
Yes, it's all educated, yes, but it's a guess, nevertheless.
Data driven, let's go with that.
And this is social services, this is AHM. So that's our social worker that we contract through AHM. They traditionally go up every year, so I increased that. There's about a $3,000 increase on that line. So on the next page, page 11, this is property services. So this is mostly taking care of the building. There are some of these 400s do fall in some of the other functions, but you'll see that the majority of the dollars is in grounds, building maintenance, or building operations. Safety is up a little bit. That is mostly our fire systems, and we have a lot of them, and I don't pretend to understand them all. But we do have sprinklers and fire alarms and fire extinguishers and all that. And our repair and maintenance in that just seems to be steadily declining. My sense is this building has hard water, and it affects any of the systems that operate off the water. So we're finding sometimes that they're having to scope through some of those lines and look for buildup in those lines from the hard water and clear those out. So anyway, that's all I know about fire. You should probably help. Security is down a little bit. We spent a lot of money on cameras, doors, all that stuff. So we don't really see any new kind of security, it's more just kind of maintaining what we have, so that number actually came down a little bit. Building, let's see, building maintenance, we'll get into that in more detail. In the, I think it's level 3 of your book, we actually break these 3 things out in more detail. But I did want to mention, under building maintenance, this year's budget, and Sally said this already, is a lower number because we moved a lot of that work to the previous year. So the 2021 number looks a little higher because we're kind of righting the ship as far as timing goes. So what this does is it restores painting. Painting is restored in there, and there's also a contingency in there for something we just don't know that'll blow up. This year that we're in, we moved a lot of money out of that budget because again, we did the work the previous year, and that was how we were able to pay for the outplacement and the additional teacher. So just kind of bring that whole history back as to why that number came down for this current year budget. One thing I did forget to mention is when you look at anything that says budget, if you look at the 18-19 or the 19-20, those budget numbers are after transfers. So it's not the original budget, it's the budget that is as of today from any transfers we have made. Okay, moving on to page 12. The only really significant change here was instructional technology. This number is up about $2,000, the printing. We have state-of-the-art copy machines now, and people seem to really like to use them. And this number is totally driven on, we pay per print on those copy machines. We have 1 full year under our belt of that. You know, it was kind of a guess, that was a new way for us to do this. So we do have 1 year of experience, and so that's a better number based on experience. And then in the special education line, this $100,000 number, that's our outplacement. For this year, it's budgeted at 90. I increased it by 10 for next year. We pay for that based on services that student receives, and those services are all salary driven, so I just anticipate that their salaries are gonna go up and they'll be charging us more for that.
I'm going to cover for just a second too a couple other lines here. The principal line, that includes again a lot of our software. That's our school messenger, our communication system, and other office technology. And under the superintendent's line, the 500 is for posting for vacancies that we have throughout the district. So just to mention those.
Yeah, so that's what's included in there, but there's really no noteworthy increases in there, so. So the next one is the 600 series, which is probably what I spend more time on because there's just more to it. So again, I'm not going to explain what's in each line, but I'll explain where there's some assumptions made or some significant increases or decreases. The safety line includes, there's about $3,000 increase there. Some of our radios are starting to fail. Almost every teacher has a radio on them. So I put money in there to start replacing some of those radios. The security section, again, this is mostly our cameras. That is actually down, about $2,500. Most of our equipment is new, so I don't really see a lot of maintenance with that. Building operations, the heating oil is about a $7,000 increase. We go out to contract for that every year. We haven't done it yet for the 2021, but I anticipate, and that's heating oil, I anticipate increasing the per gallon cost of that. And we estimate we use about 33,000 gallons a year. So there's an increase in that for a price increase. Instructional technology, way over here is the tech supplies. We have some smart boards we want to replace, so there's additional money in there for some of the smart boards that need to be replaced. The specialists, which again is our OT psych down here. Psych in particular, we have seen an increase in the supplies they need, and it's mostly the testing materials that they do. So there's about $1,000 more in that line for testing materials that our psychologist uses for kids. In special education, the $6,800 is an increase. What's in there is IEP Direct, which is the software they use to track students' IEPs, but they also started using this year, which I believe the PTA shared the cost in, was a new software, and it's called Learning Alley. Don't know anything about it, but they like it and they want to use it next year. So that new software, which is about $1,400, has been added to that. And then lastly is math. That we buy textbooks every year, so the $5,200 is a textbook, and we are now getting charged an online fee to use in the instructional part of that. So that's new. Yes.
Just they're not textbooks, they're workbooks.
They're workbooks.
They're consumables, that's why we have to get them every year.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna go back up to the instruction line. Can you point that out up there? It's like 2/3. There we go. Yeah, that amount under supplies, that's our supply closet.
It's our supply closet. It's a lot of stuff.
That's why
it's
that
not
number
just the
keeps
supply
being-
closet. It's just, I have a breakdown of that. I can go through in more detail. But
And
it's,
then underneath that, you can see the
Bless you.
breakout by grade level and by subject area, that teachers have requested certain items for their grades and so on. So those are all supplies.
$800, the only really significant change is that student enrichment, which is the same thing as student activities, that's actually a decrease of about $2,000. And what's in there is a lot of the admissions to those field trips we do. So because our student population is dropping, cost of admission is dropping. So that's again a very broad overview of the objects. Certainly a lot more detail we can dive into at the workshops, and I'm sure we will. But I just wanted to give you a flavor of how this is put together and the assumptions made to do that. What I want to do next is show you how you can go from one schedule to another and how those numbers kind of tie in. So you're gonna need some Post-it notes. This is activity based.
Hands on.
Which line item is this, Laura?
This comes out of the supply closet.
Okay.
still don't stick
Guess you're gonna follow along. So if you go in your budget book to page 6, that's the 3-year budget comparison. So this is what page 6 looks like over here. And all I'm doing is I'm just pulling out one area to kind of show you how it ties into other schedules, and you could certainly do this with other ones. So what you might want to do is put a sticky on page 6. So if you need to go back to see what we're looking at, you'll know where that is. And what I've circled here is the object 400 for 192,700 hours. If you flip to page 7, you'll see at the bottom of the page the 400 series. That's now kind of sorting that out to some more detail. There's cleaning services, there's repair and maintenance, there's technology related repair and maintenance, there's rental of equipment, which we don't do anymore. So those categories add up to the 192.7. So here's a big number, here's a big number with a little more breakup to it. So now we're on page 7. And we were looking at that 192.7 number here. If you flip to page 11, which is a schedule we just reviewed, you're gonna see those property services now broken up by the functions that it falls under. So now you're being able to go from the 192.7 here to the 192.7 here. And you'll see that it's cleaning undergrounds, which is mostly cleaning up the yard before school starts, and again, some other time. Grounds has repair and maintenance. And there's another schedule we're going to get to that will actually show you what that 11,000 is made of. So again, this is showing you where that 192.7 is broken up by function. So you might want to stick a sticky there. So the last sticky we had was over here with the 192.7, where you saw what functions it was broken up to. Now we're going to drill down from that 192.7 to the 60,000 and see what makes up that 60,000. Well, that's broken up. If you go to page 19, you'll see 30,000 of it under Instructional Technology, and that's our East-Con. And if you go to page 20, yep, you'll see the other 30,000 under Administrative Technology.
You back up to the East Con.
Mhm.
Just trying to what's
Page 18.
So you're looking at page 19 and page 20.
Each con was on 18.
That's right.
Okay. So you see half to 2230.
18,
I
17
got
and
it
18.
now. I thought we were.
We're going to
on
page
it.
19.
And that part of East-Con is just for our technology,
It's just for technology.
just technology.
Administrative technology, yeah.
Yeah.
But then you've got EastCon projects, and EastCon RESC, so there are 3
That's a different,
functions
that's
under
a-
all of that stuff.
yeah, that's a different object, so we're
Yep.
just looking at the 400s right now.
Yep.
Okay. I haven't lost, and the sticky notes were to stick on all those pages if you want. So again, going back to page 11, where we kind of started with the 192.7, we looked at the 60 already and saw how that was broken up with Eastcon between administrative technology and instructional technology. Now let's look at the other two components of that number, the 119,700 and the 13,000. And those you will find on pages 19 and 21. So here under building operations, 11,000 and 30,000 is over here, and you can see what's making that up. So there's power washing the building, there's the carpet cleaning, there's the septic tank that gets cleaned once a year. Under the 30,000, these are all the things that we are going to do to make up that 30,000. If you again go back to page 11 and look at the $63,000 under building maintenance, you're gonna see a list of what that's made up of. So the unexpected heating system repairs, this does not include the maintenance agreement we have where they come in and check it and do the filters. This is stuff above and beyond that. This heat's not working, the air conditioning's not working, whatever. The thing that's kind of new is the duct cleaning. We do that about every 3 years as we go through and we clean the ductwork in the building. So it's time to do that, so dollars are in there. The gym floor. This is where I mentioned I have placeholder money for things we just don't know that may happen. Again, this is all stuff that kind of breaks down the building that I can't specifically say what it is, but something's gonna break. And that's the money. So that's how you can go from schedule to schedule and look at that detail. Now, in your budget packet, you have basically instructional and administration technology. We have those two schedules. You have the schedules for grounds, building operations, and building maintenance. And again, because the board focused on that in the past. You don't have other functions in there, but that's, when we do budget workshops, you're probably gonna want them. And if you want them to start being part of a budget packet going forward, we can certainly make those adjustments. So that is the end of my follow the dots presentation. John, I'm gonna have you flip it back to Salaries. I kind of feel like it's trying to follow an IRS tax form.
Is that the conclusion of your presentation?
Yes, I will come back.
So I was just gonna ask, does anybody have any Laura based on what she just presented to the board? While she's
I'm not
standing
going
here.
anywhere.
You're sitting right back there, but while you're standing up here, just anything right now. Okay, thanks Laura.
We have questions regarding meat and potatoes
Yeah.
for a workshop, correct?
Or what we have done in the past is we haven't felt the need for workshops because the presentation's been so detailed and we've pursued it in our January meeting, our February meeting, and our March meeting. So it just depends on what the board feels that it needs to answer all of our questions.
Yeah, and some of this is review for some of you, and a couple of you that's
Brand new for 3 of us.
So
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
All right, so Laura has covered obviously a lot of the details. And my question at this point to the board is, do you have any questions on that? Would you like us to do anything before we go on? Would you like to take a break? It's entirely up to you.
Does anyone need a break? Okay, let's proceed.
Actually, I would like one, please.
Oh, sure. Okay. Fine, sure. Great.
Okay, take 5 minutes, 6 or 7 minutes.
Sally, up to you.
Yep.
Okay.
We are going to continue to look at level 3. the supplemental schedule. Laura touched on a lot of these different things, but I'm going to give you just a fuller picture of what is in some of these different specifications here. So page 16 again
Sorry, I was
is
gonna say, starting at 16, yep.
page 16.
Yep.
Grade level and specials allocations, this is actually repeated from a previous page that you saw, it's just a little easier
Next page, John.
to read.
There we go,
And
thank you.
just mentioning that, is this it? No.
This is it.
Okay. Oh, that we also have a great deal of supplies that are in the supply closet as well. So the next page, instructional technology. Again, this is a large item for us in the budget, and you'll just see this is a list of very detailed items that we purchase for supporting all of our technology in the school. Software, iPads, Chromebooks. It's interesting over the years that these have come down so much that they actually fall into supplies and not technology where we used to put them. But the teacher devices listed here along the left, those are iPads. Student devices are Chromebooks that we keep up to date.
Laptops.
Teacher devices are laptops.
Laptops.
Yeah,
Not
oh,
iPads.
Sorry, yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the student devices are Chromebooks, yeah?
So again, this is a list of our software and other things that are used with students. And the next page, again, this is the administrative technology. And this addresses the question that came up about EastCon, some of the EastCon services that we contract. You can see along the left side that there are, EastCon is listed in several different areas. The first one is outsourced. This is our technology management. The project, sometimes EastCon will do a particular project for us, a small project, for example. They have done a survey for us, the school survey in the past. If we need to do that, we get support for the website from EastCon.
Sally, quick,
sorry.
what's the significance of that 1/2 to 2230? And I noticed because it doesn't match page 17, which is 1/2 2580.
So,
Go ahead.
Um,
Go ahead.
2230 is student driven, so that's instructional driven. Whereas administration is kind of more building,
So it's still the same line item, it's just appearing on two because one's dealing with students. Okay,
one's
got
more
it.
student driven than
And again, just some other details. Schoolmaster is our student data management software and system. Trend Micro Worry Security is our antivirus software. We have a Microsoft Office license. Naviance is a software program that helps to plan for students. The sixth graders use that in looking ahead to their secondary schooling. Frontline, again, this is software, and this does our student and staff attendance and substitute. Okay. Replacement is just again for as needed, and then the EastCon Rest, that's the annual fee that we pay to them. So overall, there were several EastCon things that are listed here. Our website, which is about $7,700. Schoolmaster, which is $10,000. Our residency officer, it's not listed here, but we pay an EastCon retired policeman to do our residency checks if we need to in town. And we have used that in the past to be sure that everyone coming to school here actually lives in. And then we have two personnel people, Tom and Tyler, as they're well known, and they come in different days. Sometimes, again, we can just provide general support for the classrooms and for all of the servers and other items that we Building operations, again, this is just a very detailed breakdown of the various areas that we fund and that we work on and that we do continually. So again, this is actually down a little bit from the year before, but $214,000 that we use to just maintain everything, from water treatment, to power washing, to our heating oil is also in here. And so all the things we have to.
So just building operations is basically what it costs to keep the doors open. So that's our normal stuff, just to open up the school. If you flip to the next page, which is building maintenance, that's kind of the stuff that we wouldn't do if the building was closed. So if we had, the heating system wouldn't be breaking down if we weren't using the building. So these are kind of those one-off items. And that's kind of how we use it to distinguish between the two.
And again, this is where the duct cleaning that was mentioned shows up separately as an item that we're going to be doing this next year. And the grounds, these are just the many things that we do to keep our playgrounds and all of the grounds in good shape, maintaining them, improving them as we need to, landscaping, parking lot movements, and so on. So last year we sealed our parking lot, and this year we're going to be doing the striping on it. We often divide these things into 2 different years. We focused last year on tick control. You remember the tick outbreak that we had, and we did special spraying and treatment for that as well. 3100 is our food service cafeteria. We contract with Coventry Schools for our food service program. They provide and pay for the helpers, all of the people who work in the cafeteria, the food, they do the paperwork, they do all of the work with the state, making sure that we're in compliance with everything. So we contract with them. This contract has been going on for a long time. We were now able actually to find an origin to it, but last year we did actually put these things in writing, so we have a contract with them. And again, this is a year-to-year service that we have with Coventry.
And you've already met with them to determine the rate for next year then? Or is it variable, or that's already, how long is that contract? I guess?
It's year to year.
Year to year.
Yeah, so we will have to meet with them again and come up with another year agreement.
How often do we look at other services?
We have really not done that. We've been very happy with Coventry, but it's certainly something that can happen.
And does any of our, like, the striping and the sealing and stuff like that, do we go in with it out with the town if they're
Yes.
gonna be doing it, then we'll use the same company?
So
Yes.
we contract the town and we get at least 3 quotes, and we include the town, the library, and the fire. We only pay for the school, but we work with the town.
And the bidders, of course, they like that because they come in and they have, if they're the successful bidder, they come in and they get all this work, they can discount each one of the jobs because it's a bigger job for them. In fact, just as a side example, we had used this company for many years here to do the striping and the sealing. And when we went out to bid last spring, we had our quotes, and there was one company that came in significantly lower, like at least 30% lower than the company that we usually used. And I went back to the company we usually use, and they said, there's no way we can do it for that price. And if he said, if you have this price, you should do it for this price. And we did very well.
And then we just have a few items at the end in the appendices that you've seen before, but we put them in here because obviously they feed into our budget. Page 24 is our 5-year capital plan. And we have been working to be on target with these from year to year. The boxes that cover 2 years is because that's just a very high expensive item. And so we try to schedule those projects so that they cover 2 different budget years. For instance, we would start a project in June and move it into July as well, so it will cover 2 years. And so this is what we try to follow as much as we can in terms of capital, and we've done very well. We've been working on the locker room upgrades. That was one thing under building that was an issue. The girls' locker room has been upgraded and fixed, and new plumbing and so on, and so at least we have one very good, solid, functional locker room at this point. And then page 25, again, this is the new item that I mentioned earlier. These are our grants that we get, and so Laura's going to walk you through this as well. For your period.
So this is a new schedule, so this is new to everybody. And I think it's actually kind of important for you to understand there's more money flowing into our budget than the 4,000,003 that's been presented. And these numbers also get used when you're looking at the cost per student. It includes, even though I keep referring this to as revenue, it's also all this money gets spent. So it's added to our budget when it comes to calculating the cost per student. When I am managing the budget, I have a priority is I always try to spend grant money first. And so I try to draw down, in fact, I always draw down grant money first before I start tapping into local funds. Just makes sense. So I gave some history here so you can kind of see what's been happening to the grants. Some grants are a one-shot deal. Some grants we know actually what next year's allocation is, and that's not a hard number, but it's a number you can more or less count on getting. So these 3 here are all pre-K related. So school readiness, Smart Start operations, and Smart Start capital. Capital was a one-shot deal. They gave us that money to add the bathrooms, to do some of the playground work. So stuff we needed to, and it also included some of the extra supplies like cots and some of all that other stuff we needed to have an accredited pre-K program. So you don't see that again. That was a one-shot deal. The school readiness and Smart Start Ops, I believe, is a 7-year grant. So eventually that will run out. Whether it gets renewed or not is up to the governor. REAP is federal money. I have no idea how they calculate it. I just know I gotta fill out these forms to get it. REAP in Title I, most of these are covering salaries. So the salaries these are covering are not in the budget. REAP in Title I is covering part of our reading teacher salary. I do want you to notice how REAP in particular has been dropping.
Yep.
You know, we started in 17-18 with 35, and I'm guessing next year will be 15. I don't know what that number is for sure yet. Title I too, significant drop. So that means the Board of Ed is having to pick up more of that person's salary. Title II is teacher training. Gonna go down a little bit, not too bad. Title IV we apply for every year. It's quite a process, so I don't take that as a given, so that's why I look at blank for next year. And that's usually, this is for student enrichment, so this could be classroom support. Some, in the past, when we first got it, we used it to cover some of the field trips. IDEA 611 and 619 is both special ed. 611 is covering some of our para salaries, particularly the paras that are assigned to students with in their IEP, they're required to have a one-on-one para. So that's picking up some of that. And 619 is covering some of the like OT services.
And once again, the salaries, the portions of those salaries that are included on this one are not included on the other one.
Correct. Yeah. So I have this crazy spreadsheet. Like, here's this person's salary and this is how it's getting paid.
Is that something that we look at?
Competitive schools is a pre-K funding, and that's for education, teacher education. So this allows them to go to some seminars and stuff. Safety was a one-shot deal. That was that bonding money the governor made available, and we did a tremendous amount of work in this building to get the cameras in, the doors, and did a lot. That enables us to do a lot. So this gives you the total of these grants. So again, 17-18, big year, 422. And that's because of a lot of the safety grant and the Smart Start capital. They didn't repeat themselves. And then it starts dropping down. I included this, the town ECS. That goes directly to the town. I just wanted you to see that that too is dropping. When the state had their big, I think it was in 1819, when we thought the world was going to end in the state of Connecticut, there was big talk, big cuts looking at this, and they revised it and brought it. They actually gave us more money, but it is slowly getting.
I believe we were looking at a $2 million cut at that point,
Yeah.
which, as you can see,
It would
would
be.
be primarily the entire state funding that we receive.
And this state funding covers both AES and our RAM portion.
The town ECS that you're reflecting there, right?
Yeah. And then pre-K tuition, I put that in there just so you know. Again, I cover salaries with this. We're guessing what I think the pre-K tuition is. We do have experience now. But again, so I'm hooking salaries against this money.
Why, so that was a curiosity of me, Laura.
Okay.
If we're anticipating a decrease from 43 to 30, why is it staying at about 90,000?
I don't have a good answer.
Okay.
So this is when we only had 2 classes.
Right, I'm just looking from this year
from
to next
there.
year.
There's a, it hasn't happened yet, but there's some talk at the School Readiness Council level about increasing the tuition for the people who pay the full top line tuition.
Okay.
Surrounding towns are charging more for their program, so that could generate some additional tuition.
Okay.
Okay, we haven't gotten there yet, and I may be getting ahead of myself. But if you look at the budget, it makes sense to budget for 2 pre-K classes with 30 kids.
Oh, sure.
And-
I just was curious why it was,
Yeah, I
if we're
just kept
anticipating
it
such a
consistent
decrease,
at
it's so
9,
similar.
Dave.
Okay.
And when I looked at bringing that pre-K down to 2 classes, I did better projections on income.
Okay. Thank you.
So that, does anybody have any questions on grants?
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
And so the rest of the budget is really just background information, which explains in detail how all of the accounts are set up for our budget to meet the state guidelines. And then the final page is the goals page. And this is the last year. This particular plan, we did have goals that went back before. This is just the last 2 years. So these will need to be looked at and worked on over this next year to go into the next several years. So that's on the to-do list.
After the budget.
Right. So, John, I want to give you a chance if you'd like to say anything else. You
No,
don't have to?
I think you and Laura did an excellent job. But if anyone from the board has any questions about something we might have brought up.
This will be on our website tomorrow.
Great, thank you. Yeah, good job. So that is the end of our presentation this evening. And again, as we talked at the very beginning, the board can talk about workshops or however you would like to proceed to look at the budget in more detail.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Laura. Sally, just went over the grants and whatnot. I see in item 7C 2B, it says AES grant summary and salary comparisons.
Yes,
Was that a separate item about which you wanted to provide information?
there was a question about, at a previous board meeting about our salaries in comparison to other towns.
Mhm.
And I do have that, and
Great.
we didn't put it into the budget, because the budget was.
Properly put in the budget, right?
Right, exactly. So, so anyway,
Steve. Did the temperature go on?
Yeah, a little bit, nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Extras.
so, again, whoops, here you go. Again, this is just the average salary from 18-19, it was not this year. And we sent out a survey to the regional schools through PASBO, which is the Business Managers Association for the state, and asked for this information. And these are just the towns that responded to us for that data.
So we don't know what Hebron and Marlboro are.
No, they did not, no, they didn't respond.
They did not respond.
No, they didn't respond.
Well, shame on them. Okay.
Realistically, that's governed by the union contract, so no matter what any other town like that would be staffed union negotiations, not during this, right? Nothing to do with our budget, their salaries. Teacher salaries are based off of what's negotiated in the union
In the contract, yes.
So what every other town, that's we brought forward during union negotiations,
Correct.
not during.
But there was a question raised, I know, by Brandon at our last meeting that questioned that, so thank you for the information.
Hey, not question. Good as it's good. So
I think Adrian questioned it and you responded to it, so
I
that's
did,
why
yeah.
I'm saying that as far as a board request having gone out, that's where the information would have come from. Okay. Dan, you wanted to address East Con class study.
Yeah, so we remember back when we were talking about class size and all that, and there was EastCon had come in and they were looking at the larger classes, and my understanding was that they were doing a study on these two larger classes. we have since voted on a class size policy. Whatever happened with this study that was being done, and how much did it cost us?
So at the time, when EastCon was brought in, they were brought in right after the October board meeting when there was concern expressed by parents and to some degree the board in terms of the class sizes, and this kind of was before we went and had the November meeting and talked about where we were gonna go from there. And what happened was, we had a 5th grade class and a 2nd grade class, and we had parents that came and spoke out, as you remember. And we decided that in the interim, because we didn't know if we were going to divide these classes into 2 separate classes, add teachers, we didn't know if we were gonna add paras, we didn't really know where the board was gonna go with this. We wanted to provide as much support to the classroom teachers as we could. And one way to do that was to engage the services of EastCon to come in and do a analysis, but more than an analysis, it wasn't an analysis, it was providing instructional support and strategies to the teachers in terms of looking at the classroom layout, looking at their management strategies that they're using in the classroom right now, and offering strategies and suggestions in terms of other reinforcements and other rewards to kind of, help them to take a group this size and to help them have, the best educational opportunities available, because that was the concern. Too many people in the room, too much furniture in the room, not enough ability to kind of have groups and differentiate and meet student needs. That was the concern. And we brought them in to provide professional expertise and support in that area. So what they did was they arranged meetings we actually extended it to 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 5th grade. And they met with all 3 teachers and actually did like a little inventory of like what their needs were, like what their perceived needs, what their areas of concern were. In fact, they looked at what's going well and what would you like to work on and what would you like some assistance with, all 3 teachers. Then they responded to that. Then the person came in and met with the teachers, observed the classroom, and then met with the teachers again to do a debrief. And that happened 3 separate times. It was scheduled 3 separate times. They did not meet with all 3 teachers all 3 times because on a couple of the times, teachers weren't available for various reasons. They might have been out on a personal time or sick time or something like that. But EastCon was available to meet with all 3 teachers before, observe, and after on 3 separate occasions. And the total cost for that service was $3,150. And once the board voted to provide support into those classrooms, we no longer needed their services.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is, did we jump ahead in bringing them in and spending this $3,000?
Well, at the same time, just so I can understand, the time frame here is between our October to the next November meeting. So we have kids in school who apparently with a class size which is potentially too large, so you're trying to figure out a way to assist them until the board makes a
Provide
decision,
support.
Right.
Yes.
But we were supposed to vote on that the very next month is when we were supposed
Yeah, but we still have kids in class for a month, so this administration did what they did. I mean, I don't know, so did all 3 visits happen during this period of time, right? Between October?
Yes,
Yeah.
they were happening in November.
So I guess my other question too is, we've been told so many times that our class sizes are too small and everyone else has these larger class sizes, and what they have is the norm and what we have is not the norm. So if these larger class sizes are the norm, why would we need to bring in an outside service to help deal with large class sizes?
Well, it's a very good question. It's an excellent question. And the question came up because there was concern expressed at the board level and there was concern expressed at the public level. You know, you were here for the parent comment session that night. You heard the emotion, you heard the parents, you heard what their concerns were. And Sally and I, we put our heads together and we were working on how can we support the instruction that's happening in these classrooms in the moment. How can we, what can we do right now that is a proactive step to provide support so that, you know, in terms of overall instruction, it's gonna go well and we're gonna be able to support the teachers. And we feel like this was a very, you know, sound decision to bring in some outside support, some expertise that you know, specializes in classroom management and strategies and behaviors. You heard parents at the public comment session talking about, you know, this class has a lot of personality, things like that. They use some of those kind of phrases.
And I'm not disagreeing that this wasn't a good thing. I guess what I'm saying is what did they find? Did they find that the extra help was needed? That
Did the teachers find it or did EastCon find it?
No. What was, I guess I'm saying is, what was the results of what they found? What were their recommendations as far as all this went? I just, you know, because I guess what I want to say is I was very for adding more teachers, more paras, what have you. And so down the road, I want to be able to say when when they came in to evaluate these larger classes, when we get criticized after this, I want to be able to say, well, EastCon, they came in, they did an analysis, and this is what they found. I just want to know what the results were of.
But my understanding, Dan, of the study was the purpose of the study was not to give an analysis to provide us or the school administration with, we recommend that you hire more teachers, more paraprofessionals. It's, you have a classroom of 22 students, 24 students. This is what we recommend for classroom layout, classroom management, strategies to deal with students. Am I correct, John?
It was much more
That's
of a
what you
hands-on
explained.
strategy approach versus an analysis. So
Right.
I think we're a little bit lost in the terminology just in terms of like what was actually happening. And because what EastCon gave us, and I would be happy to share it with you, is they gave us a report, like we have data, because that's what EastCon does, they collect data. And so for example, they went to the teachers and they talked about reinforcement rates, positive to correction kind of reinforcement rates and rates of that, and then they went and measured it and they tracked it. So I have graphing that shows that after the first meeting, when the person who came in from EastCon suggested, I want you to try this and I want you to do this consistently, and so the next time I come, I'm gonna be looking for it. And all of that particular recommendation, you know, spiked to the positive, you know, in a very, you know, productive manner. And those were some of the results. So like very good things were happening as a result of them being there. And again, like I said, we did not know what the board was going to decide. We did not know where this was going to go ultimately. And so this was a tool that we had available to us to try to help the situation in the moment. And we didn't want another 20 or 30 school days to go by before we, you know, addressed it again.
And like I said before, I wasn't criticizing so much the fact that this was done. I want to know
The purpose and the
purpose, what they found, and because, you know, I was on the same page. I felt those classes were too big. And clearly if we had to bring in an outside company for to evaluate classes with, you know, then what we had was not the norm, I guess, was what we could say.
Well, again, it wasn't to evaluate the class sizes. It was to provide instructional support given the class sizes,
I
right?
understand that,
Okay.
but I'm saying you're providing us support for
For the teachers.
Right,
the classes
because
as
they
they
have
existed.
larger class sizes.
Yeah.
Based on the concerns that were raised at our
Right.
October meeting.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
They
And
didn't
I
do an
think-
evaluation of the class sizes.
And I think on some level, just
I
from
understand.
from a board perspective, especially because we're talking about number of classrooms and class sizes anyway.
Yep.
I think from a board perspective, in some, across the building, you know, we've become accustomed to smaller sizes. And so some of these 21s, 22s in one room are new. Or I shouldn't say new, but relatively new. Relatively new over the last 5 to 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, if you could give me that.
Yeah, if you wanna like stop by, I'll be happy to take it right out and show it to you. So, yeah, I'd be happy to.
Segueing
Okay,
right into
all
the
right.
next item is our enrollment
Our
report.
enrollment report, and we certainly have talked a lot about enrollments tonight. So it's, again, as we mentioned, not a surprise, we're up and down here and there.
But John, you anticipate that number's gonna be back to 203 based on what you represented earlier in the meeting for
I do.
our
I do,
February
yeah,
numbers,
because
okay?
these numbers reflect grade 3 and grade 5 reflect us losing
Right.
those students, and we're expecting 2 more to join us in those exact same grades.
In mid-January, you said,
Yeah.
so,
I
should
think
be
the
about
17th
now.
of January,
Okay.
something like that.
and the other students to whom you referred were the kindergarten and first graders,
Next
they're not
year,
gonna be starting till next year.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanna be clear.
Okay, and financial report.
Yep.
Laura has provided updates for the current year, so we'll look at questions on any of that. They're here by object and by function. Questions, then the health room report is also no major surprises. We have one new piece of lights.
But no embedded ticks, that's excellent.
Exactly, no ticks. And so, 8 is an action item that we have for this evening. And this item is a request from a teacher, Amanda Lemoyne, for a leave of absence.
Do I have a motion in that regard?
I'll move to approve the request for leave for Amanda Bloom as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving the request for leave for Amanda Burgoyne as presented? 600. Okay. Anything else?
That's all that we have.
We're now on to agenda item number 9, which is comments from the public on agenda items discussed this evening. And again, limiting those comments to 3 minutes, please. Yes, Amy?
Has to be an agenda item.
It does, yes.
I missed the opening
Okay,
part to speak.
yes.
I'll send you a note.
Yes,
On the budget,
Can you tell me your name, please?
my name is Kevin Regan. I was daughter of the defense school here.
Address?
Oh, I lived on Wales Road.
Wales? Thank you.
So I noticed a line item of elevator maintenance, budgeted for $3,000. Is that something that happens every year, or is this an overhaul to state mandates, or that every 10 years or whatever it is?
So there's a maintenance contract on the elevator. They do inspections that are required by the state of Connecticut.
Mhm.
Our elevator is old and it breaks down, so that's an additional service call. So that's what that means.
So it's basically just expected maintenance over the course of a school year, $3,000.
Yeah, the contract is $3,000.
Oh, the contract is $3,000.
Yeah.
How often do they actually get called out to service it?
last year, they got called out a few times because the panel was failing. So what was happening was the elevator was not stopping level with the floor. And we were looking at either a brand new panel in excess of $20,000 or a repair, if they could find the parts, to upgrade the existing panel. They were able to find the parts, they were able to upgrade the panel for a lot less money, and it's been working fine.
So the $3,000 is a contract that you have a yearly contract with them that doesn't include any of these parts.
There is money in that budget for an additional service cost.
Okay, so I didn't know if it was like, the contract, they'll come up and do whatever up to this amount of work and then you pay something extra, or if it's something else. It just seemed like a lot to me, $3,000 a year for an elevator that I don't honestly know how often it gets used, but
The
I
elevator
imagine.
actually gets used quite a bit, because we're 2 stories.
Well, I get that, but
We're
3 times a day, 5 times a day.
Well, when I had my ankle surgery, I was using it 10 times a day.
And just, it's just little things like that and
just so for a little more knowledge,
Yeah.
when that contract came up for renewal, we worked with the town to have, we went out to bid, and we went out to bid for the town's elevator and the school's elevator, hoping for some, a lower price because there's 2 elevators involved instead of just one. So, we work to try to keep those.
And for all these contracted services, I understand your world is the finances side of things, and you were very honestly said you didn't really know what some of this stuff meant, but this is what you guys pay for it. When these different services are agreed on and purchased, or agreements to purchase, are there people that know something about the world of what they're about to sign a contract on? How are these things put out to bid?
So, bid is probably not a good word to use. We really very rarely go out and do a formal bid because that's a huge process. We will usually contact 3 different vendors. Now, I can speak to the elevator contract because I was involved in that. I learned more about elevators than I ever want to know. And I just, I kept pumping them for questions. I, read those contracts and why does this one say it this way and this one says it that way? So, is there anybody between the school and the town that is elevator savvy? No, there's not. And that's why we need to rely on outside contractors.
Well, I get that, but a lot of times these commercial contractors, there aren't that many of them. And you can pretty much get whatever you want from a given organization because you and one other guy, and you both want to charge $30,000 for something that should be $10,000. Well, the baseline is $30,000, so that's what they're going to pay because the 2 guys they call is $30,000, and that's just stuff that happens. And if you have someone in the know of stupid things like what should I be paying for the sprinkler system, whatever they have to do to that every year, what should I be paying for this, what should I be paying for that, and if you're just the person in charge of, okay, I've got to make sure all these stuff happens in the building, you call the people you normally call and they'll charge whatever they want.
Well, can I answer a little bit of that? First of all, our head custodian is extremely knowledgeable in all of facility and mechanical and property services areas. And then secondly, there's a state bid list, and there's a state bid list where they have approved vendors for all these things. And third, there's EastCon, who also provides, if there's a certain person over there that says, oh, you need a quote on lighting, call these 3 people. These 3 people are, they've proven themselves, they work in schools, they're, on the state bid list, that kind of thing. So we do have ways to access qualified people who are not ripping the school system off, if you will, or taking advantage of the situation. But it also behooves us to, get those price quotes and compare, just like I explained earlier on the ceiling and the striping project this past summer.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
It was so
And
much
it wasn't
less.
that long ago, we did the fire.
Yeah, we did that recently
Right.
too. Yeah. So I hope that helps a little
Well,
bit.
thank you, helps a lot.
Any other comments? We've got our upcoming regular board meeting on February 12th. Are there any items that you specifically want to have addressed during our next meeting?
Yes, I would like to address next year's calendar. So that would be the calendar for 2020 to 2021.
Starting in July 2020.
Yeah, well,
No, school calendar.
beginning of
This is
school.
School calendar,
Yes, it's
yeah. So I think, based on the comment by Adrian and other discussions we've had tonight, the question would be whether or not we want to have a budget workshop, and if so, for when we would schedule that. That would be a board workshop, to ask detailed questions of Laura and Sally and John, or whomever we wanted additional information from. I will tell you, based on 4 years of experience, looking through this binder, asking the questions we need to ask, getting the additional information, has always been sufficient, for us to obviously pass the budgets we have in the past. And we've never felt the need for a workshop, but that doesn't mean that, especially with 3 new board members, that we might not feel the need for a workshop this year. And if so, when would we want to schedule it?
So I'll go ahead and open up with that. I do think, I think we need to have a workshop, agree with that, because again, we're not only being new, but we're also talking about an 8% increase and a population increase. We need to we need to dig into that more and understand what all's on a lot of these items, and personally, I'd like some time to digest this a little bit. With that being said, I know there's a lot of scheduling issues that come up.
Yes.
So because it's just a workshop, if for whatever reason, if we have to reach a quorum, like what are the requirements? I don't understand as to what's required for board attendance if certain board members may not be available or can't make it for a workshop.
Well, so before we get to the workshop, let's get to the timing for that. So what I would ask you to consider is whether or not we want to do something before our February meeting, only because there's the opportunity at our February meeting to ask an extended amount of questions. Laura will be back for our February meeting. Sally and John are always here. And it would give you and me the time to review what we've just been presented this evening and come up with those questions. They're always available, obviously, by email, to ask, for additional information or questions. But the question I would have is the timing for the workshop and to see if after our February meeting, we felt there was a need for it.
Well, and I guess my answer to that would be the fact that looking here, we February 26th is then submitting the budget. Correct, and I believe that's a hard date, is that correct?
Yes, that's what I was
To the
thinking
Board of
by
Finance.
To the Board of Finance. So I think there's two things that I would just say, and I realize again that it's gonna keep us busy, but that's
That's our job.
Yeah. So February 26th, our meeting is 12, so that's 14 days. That's 2 weeks
Right.
in which then to throw in a workshop, I don't know. Now we're even tighter. What if one of our schedules is gonna work with that? So now we've limited that to 2 weeks. The other thing is we did have, as you pointed out, right now we're gonna submit an 8% increased budget to the Board of Finance and eventually, affecting Board of Selectmen. One of the Board of
I wouldn't agree with that, but okay.
No,
Yes.
but as of right now, that's what I said.
That's what's being presented, based on what was asked.
And the Board of Selectmen, one of the members has come here and requested that he thinks that this might be a good idea. So I think also, to say that when we do look and whatever we've submitted, to just good faith that we've gone through it and taken our time to submit, to go through it and really break everything down. I think it makes sense to have.
I will put in my 2 cents here as far as, and you reminded me to comment on this. The Board of Selectmen atypically is meeting after the Board of Education just because of how the January dates ran. I have communicated with First Selectman McGuire. They are anticipating presenting to the Board of Education their belief on what our budget should be for the coming year. And they haven't previously done that. That was requested of them by the financial person. Laura actually commented on that when we met with her, that in the prior schools in which she's worked, the town has actually come up with a budget number for the school to shoot for example, as far as their budgeting numbers. So we don't yet have that direction from the Board of Selectmen as a whole. They are looking at continuing to reduce our budget as we have for the last 4 years, especially with the decreased student population. And the numbers that they are looking at are similar to the MBR numbers within which we could reduce. So those numbers are anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000. Again, that is divided out between Andover Elementary School and RAM. But as far as presenting an increased budget, that probably, just based on my discussions with members from the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, is not going to be acceptable to them. So I agree that a workshop would be helpful. And again, they're looking to decrease our numbers by, let's say, half of at least $500,000 to $600,000 as far as what the Board of Selectmen is going to recommend to the Board of Education.
As presented, I believe it represents 300,000 over.
Correct. And
So-
8% increase.
So we're looking at essentially somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000 off of what is currently in here
Correct.
to meet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm
To
gonna
me,
say,
what they're
well,
gonna recommend.
we should
It's
have a
still-
budget
it's still-
workshop.
It's still our
absolutely.
our job to do that, but they're allowed certainly as our overseers and Board of Finance as who is ultimately responsible for the budget to present up with their numbers, their recommendations. And that's what I think they intend to do. It's my understanding at their meeting next Monday evening.
So that's next month, that was.
Yeah, that's next Monday is Board of Selectmen. So, given that, other comments about a workshop, I agree.
Can you,
Let's look
real
at
quick on my
schedules.
original question is to requirements for attendance and quorum and what have you for a workshop, is that?
We haven't done one in 4 years, Steve, so I'm gonna say off the cuff, my understanding is a workshop is as you want to attend or as you feel the need to attend. I don't think it's mandatory. If you don't have any
So three
questions.
people show up and not a fourth person shows up, we can still go.
If you have any questions, you bring those questions to the workshop. If you don't have any questions, you don't need to show up to the workshop. If I'm wrong in that regard,
Yeah, we'll double check, but that's my understanding.
That's my
I will-
understanding.
We aren't
but I
gonna
will
be
check.
actioning on any items or on anything.
no, we're not voting, it's simply to review in
I'll
detail
check
the budget items. What I would recommend for anybody who wants to attend the workshop is that if you can, beforehand, send the questions, any additional information, documents and whatnot, to Sally and Laura, so that they can actually have the information to address during the workshop, not be getting the question for the very first time at the workshop. So that being said, I would say let's look at a workshop at least 2 to 3 weeks out, so everybody has time to digest what we've been presented tonight, pose the questions, Laura has the time to come up with the information. So can people look at their calendars and let's see if there's a date on which we can all,
Are these open meetings as well to the public or not?
I'm sorry, what?
Are they open to the
I don't,
to the public, correct?
Oh, sure.
They
Yes, workshops are open to the public. I will double check and let everybody know about the special meeting issue, because workshops may be classified as a special meeting, in which case we do have more guidelines and rules and all that we have
Correct.
to follow.
Yep.
So, but I will double check, I can see what.
so I'm looking at the last week of January, the week of January 27th. We could also look at the first week of February, in that our meeting doesn't occur until the 12th. If that would be easier for people. So just look at your schedules and let's see.
Well, the 29th is the winter concert.
Yes,
Oh, there you go.
correct, so we're not gonna be doing it that evening.
And then, well, technically the 30th is the snow date for the winter concert.
Okay, so I would,
We don't
but
have
let's do it the
school.
first week of February.
Yeah,
Are
you'd
you-
have,
Are you around until then as far as vacation plans or anything, as far as answering questions? I didn't think so, I just
No.
wanna make sure. So let's look at the week of February 3rd, that may be easier.
So there's a PTA meeting on the 4th, but the 5th would be a possibility, I guess.
So Wednesday evening, how does that look for everybody?
Works for me.
Now, we can also start workshops earlier, we don't have to do it, if people can be here by 6, we don't have to start.
In February,
It is,
first Wednesday?
no, it's on a Monday,
It's on a Monday?
it's on the second Monday of the month, right, as of the new year?
Oh, so that's the,
Okay.
You're welcome, that's the 10th,
I
Nope.
don't have that.
yes.
yeah.
So what, I answered for Jeff, it's okay. So, how does the 5th look for everybody? Would we wanna start earlier, wanna start at 6, could people make it by 6? That just is having Laura have to wait here less amount of time in the building and whatnot. Okay, let's do a budget workshop at 6 on February 5th. And we'll get notice of that also out to parents, anybody who wants to attend, put it in the River East. And again, I'm just gonna caution everybody to send questions, especially requests for additional information, because that's gonna take a little
And there's
time.
nothing, we don't have to wait until the budget workshop to get our questions answered.
No,
We can reach out.
nope,
Yeah, we share answers with everybody.
right,
So,
so
you
just
know,
send a
yeah,
reply all
yeah.
right to
So
everybody
we
and
just-
whatnot. Using our email addresses through the school would be helpful.
Yes, that's where we will send things, so.
Yeah.
And then I propose that we go from there to our February 12th meeting, the very following week, and see if we feel the need for another workshop. Which would, you already pointed out, Steve, would need to occur before the 26th. We'd also then need to, if we determine at that time we need to do anything, we would then need to schedule a special meeting to vote on the budget before February 26th to properly send it over to Board of Finance. So the intention right now is to see what we can do at our February meeting so we don't have to schedule a special meeting in February. But everybody keep that on the back burner as far as the possible necessity to do that. Okay. Anything else before we adjourn? So I move motion to adjourn at 9:10. Anybody wanna leave?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Jerry. Any second?
I'll send it.
Thank you, Steve. All those in favor? 600. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine, for taping us.